Grace and peace, lovely people. This is Straight Up with Nick, and I'm Nate. To get right into it, right? Batman versus Superman. For years, we've had this debate, and people have had this debate between Batman and Superman. Which is better? Which is the superior superhero? What can be said about them, so on and so forth. This video is not to say who exactly is better, but to look at both sides of the coin. What does one side have versus the other side, and so on and so forth. So, to get right into it, I'm going to start with Superman. So Superman is one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. I didn't say the greatest, I said one of the most iconic. When it comes down to it, Superman has always represented hope, he's always represented love, he's represented a number of things that most people are not conventionally thinking of. And so, as we all know, he is known as the Man of Steel, and at the same time he was born on Krypton, and because of certain circumstances and situations, Krypton was destroyed along with many of the Kryptonians. However, Clark Kent survived due to his father Jor-El, who sent him down to Earth. The reason being is because his father had an idea or had an experience where he understood that Clark would thrive if he went to Earth. He would thrive in a sense that, you know, when it's all said and done, he would be somewhat of a hero, or that he would have powers beyond understanding, which was the truth. Now, when it comes down to it, Superman was one of those heroes that, despite it all, despite certain circumstances and despite situations, he always fought for the better good. Not to say that he's perfect in every single way, that he can't be hurt, because, believe it or not, his two weaknesses are kryptonite and as well as magic. Now, in this understanding, I think a lot of people tend to think that Superman is invulnerable, he can't be hurt, he can be hurt. And then there's other times where people will say that, oh, Superman is the greatest, Superman can't be hurt, who is better than him, so on and so forth. And that's where the argument of Batman comes from. So to finish up with Superman, Superman was one of the biggest heroes of DC. He's also one of the heads of the Justice League, and he always did his best to be that type of leader that other leaders can look up to. He always did his best to be that type of leader that every other hero, when they come into it, they always worked hard to support him, or he worked hard to support others. He wasn't perfect, he had his issues, and so on and so forth. Got you. Now, the cons of this, of, I guess, Superman being the greatest as opposed to Batman, is the fact of, I guess, due to his ego, and if we're just going to be honest, Superman sometimes does have an ego. He, at times, doesn't keep his power or himself in check. The thing about it is that sometimes his power gets to his head, and at times when he wants to battle certain enemies, he gets his behind handed to him on a platter. Beyond the point. I think that sometimes Superman doesn't consider his strength has to be dialed back at times when it comes down to dealing with certain villains or circumstances. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about in terms of strength. I'm also talking about the fact that in certain situations, just because you have power does not mean you should use it. And there are times where Superman used brute force when he should have used common sense. The transition into Batman. A lot of times Batman had to be the one to check Superman. And why I say it like that is because there were times where Superman let his ego get the best of him. At times where Superman would do certain things or handle certain situations or go forward and say certain things, and Batman would say, we cannot have all the power all the time. It's either we're going to have to respect the law, or the law is going to make us respect it. With Batman, I can understand why people lean on Batman so much more, because Batman is much more relatable in the context that he doesn't have superpowers, he's very intelligent, he's a great hand-to-hand combat fighter, and I think when it comes down to it, Batman makes the difference or levels the playing field when it comes down to Superman himself. Now, I think in this type of instance, a lot of people tend to think that, oh, just because we have power, like I mentioned before, just because we have power that, oh, nobody can harm us, prevent us from being better heroes or better leaders or better this, that, and the third. The truth of the matter is sometimes not having powers shows how much power you really have. And the thing about Batman was that even though he didn't have power, he had a lot of influence. He had a lot of respect. He was able to use his influence to make a difference. Now, with Bruce Wayne, His backstory is this. He is the son of Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne. I could be wrong about the name, but don't mark me on it. But the story behind him is that his inspiration to become Batman was due to the death of his mother and father. With the death of his mother and father, he took it upon himself to say, okay, I want to live a life where I battle crime. He created the Batman suit itself and went on patrol every single night trying to fight crime. And for him, his biggest thing was that he didn't become Batman simply to fight crime, but also to prevent that young man and young woman from losing someone they love. He looked out for everybody. Batman, like I said, was a great hand-to-hand fighter. He was very inventive, and he was also very, very intellectual. There are times where Batman, despite certain things about him, he was weird, but there were a lot of things about him that, when it comes down to it, he was one of the balancing heroes in DC who always made the difference that heroes should not carry too much power, that heroes should not be the only people on the world who should not be checked. He was often that type of person to call out Superman and say, hey, just because we have power, it doesn't mean we should use it. And that was just truth. Because, like I mentioned before, power comes with a lot of responsibility, and Batman himself often understood that in order to make a difference and in order to have an impact, we also have to get that power comes with limits. And I think Batman often was that type of person to check not just Superman, but a majority of the Justice League and say our powers have to come with limits. Our power has to come with understanding that we are making a difference, we are making an impact to the people who live on Earth. If you've ever seen movies such as Justice League Doom or most Justice League movies, Batman was the type of person to say, okay, checks and balances. That was his mindset, checks and balances. So in the movie Justice League Doom, he analyzed everybody in the Justice League, analyzed their strengths, their weaknesses, what is their capability, what is their discapability, and understand why that has to be analyzed and kept in check. So what happens is a group of villains take advantage of Superman and everybody else's in the Justice League weaknesses and uses them. Say what you will, and you may say, oh, Batman's sneaky, Batman's this, so on and so forth. But let's also keep it 100. That is actually a solid plan, because the reason why he moved that way was because his idea was this, that if the Justice League went rogue, there needs to be proper protocol on what needs to be done, not simply to neutralize, but to incapacitate every single member of the Justice League to make sure that there's no way they cannot be stopped, there is no way that they can be prevented from doing whatever it is they wanted to do, which was possibly take over governments or topple certain countries. Now, the thing about it is, for me, some people may say that, oh, that's a great invasion policy. Yes, on one end, but if I'm just going to be honest, I don't feel comfortable having so much power and no one can check me. If anything, I'd rather you be able to check me and tell me, hey, I think we need to slow down and be mindful of what power we're working with, because there are people who can definitely get hurt. Like I said, I look at both sides of the coin. I get it's an invasion of privacy. Batman's weird like that. But the reason I believe that it's not something so bad is because at certain points and times, you need someone to keep you in check. So in my opinion, it goes both ways. Superman, in my opinion, has powers in which, quite frankly, it becomes handy in most situations where at times where you don't know how to beat a certain villain, but a great amount of strength or speed or super senses comes in handy. And, you know, I do believe that he represents so much hope, and that, you know, things do get better when you apply a right amount of pressure. But I do agree on the opposite end, where Batman, he tries to keep it humble, and he tries to keep it in place that as heroes, we can't do anything that we want. We can't do whatever we please. And I think at a certain point in time, we have to remember that Batman is not the type of person who he's against the Justice League. And believe it or not, him and the Justice League did have friction, because at times the Justice League would want to do certain things, and Batman would sit there and say, we can't do it any way we want, because there's still the law. There's also still the government who we have to be mindful of, because though we work in these cities, though we work in saving people, though we work in putting criminals behind bars, we have to be mindful that we are not bigger than the law, we are not greater than the law, and we definitely cannot take the law into our own hands. And believe it or not, there are other universes within DC where Superman has definitely taken the law into his own hands, either killing, destroying, or completely dismantling certain situations with his own power. So to this extent, I will say, who am I choosing? I can't really choose. I know some people wanted me to say, oh, Nate, you have to choose one side over the other, and blah, 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 blah. No. I'm choosing not to get involved. We're choosing one side over the other because I want to be fair. Batman has his strengths, so does Superman. Now, in terms of strengths, like I said, Batman, he's very analytical, he's also very tactical, he's very great in hand-to-hand combat, and he's also inventive. He knows how to create his own gadgets, he knows how to create his own machines. He also is aware of how he can make a difference in the world, though he doesn't have his power. And he's also a CEO of $1 billion company. So in that regard, I respect it. I'm not against him. I'm not saying he's a bad hero. If anything, I would want people to be like Batman, but also at the same time, if you do have powers, I get why you would lean towards Superman. So in that regard, I get why Superman lean on his side, because Superman at times, he also gets that he has to make a difference and fight hard for people who don't have anything or who don't have enough. Because there's times where we sit there and make it seem like, oh, Superman, he has too much power, but sometimes you need that power to help protect those who don't have it. And so I look at both sides of the coin, but I'm not going to choose a side. I do understand why there's such a big argument, because there's times where some people feel like power is linked to a certain level of ego. Power is linked to a certain level of control. And so for me, I do agree on the sense that you need a certain level of power to keep control, Batman, but I also do feel that a certain level of influence can be just as powerful as strength itself to keep control or to help make a difference within the world. So with that being said, I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, share the video with your friends, and definitely send messages. I do respond. I will see you guys next time.